back at Stevensons Mercedes near Larkfield in Kent because at the time we did the service on the W204 we noticed the front discs and pads were on the way out. They were absolutely on the limit. Now coming here is a great idea because Steve here can buy the parts and the components genuine from Mercedes, proper AMG bits, not the stuff you get from Eurocar parts, which is any part for any car, which is more of a warning on the back of the van rather than a promise of what you're going to get. Also, when he does it, if he sees any other problems on my daily car, which is racking up big miles, he's going to sort them out at the same time. So it's a win-win-win all the time. And a third thing I figured out today is that I'm probably far too tired to do it right now because on the way here I missed a turning for this industrial estate, got on the motorway, I was on the way to London before I realised I didn't know where I was going. So I'm glad someone like him who's awake is fitting the brakes on my car right now. Also you notice I'm not in his face today, this is social distancing in the garage. The car's over there, there's cameras on tripods, there's GoPros watching everything, so instead of getting a blow-by-blow description of what's going on, I'll watch it afterwards and see what happened and maybe I'll talk over it. Because while I'm here, I'm taking extra precautions to make sure everyone's sort of safe. Hand sanitizer as you walk in. Everyone's asked to maintain distances, which is sensible. And Lucas aiming to raise £250,000 for the British Lung Foundation through the sale of these hand wash stations. Obviously the reservoir cap is removed first of all.
When we take the bolts out of the caliper, we just like to make sure that the caliper slides are nice and free. I usually take them out, just check that they're greased. If there's any doubt, we just pop another little bit of copper slip, just anti-seize on there, just to make sure they all go in. And no issues. Sometimes we find that these slides might be fine towards the edge where they're worn, but it's the full extent, so when they go back with the new pads, sometimes these arms have a bit of corrosion or something on them and they can stick when the new pads are on. So we just like to make sure that they're nice and free. Pads have worn quite evenly, which is usually a good sign that that those slides are working as they should. They are sliding, but sometimes it's just preventative for next time. When we take these off, we'll just make sure that where these metal shims go in, where the new ones go in, they've got a coating so these don't rust and they're stainless steel, but the carriers are cast iron, so they're quite open to corrosion. So we just make sure that the gaps that they sit in are wire brushed out so they sit in nicely so that the pads can slide within the carrier as well as the slides on the side. Get a nice even movement. That's good. So we'll take that bit off. These are quite nice through there, but even so, I'll give them a wire brush off. Again, sometimes the hubs can corrode, so when you take them off, it can leave bits of the disc on the hub, so that can cause a distortion. So I just like to make sure that that's all nice and flush. These have a preservative wax on the disc, just to stop them corroding while they're in storage, which comes off very easily. They used to have a blue, almost like a lacquer on them that we used to have to take off with thinners.
Oh really?
But they've gone to this wax coating on them for certainly the last good few years. So I put the new caps on there. The brake pads are handed on the inner ones just to give the shape of the piston, and we just use a Mercedes provider graphite grease to lubricate the sliding points again.
People are saying never use the copper slip on modern cars.
There are times that we do, and even, I must admit, even Mercedes on some will provide you with a different type of copper.
Okay.
So,
Specific.
yes. Cars with composite or brakes. There's another brake paste for them that we use as well. Yes, yeah, more ceramic type. Yes, that's correct. Just put a little bit on where the ears touch in the caliper. New bolts with yeah, they've got a Loctite already on them.
Oh wow!
All gone in nicely. Not binding anywhere. Now a bit of brake cleaner on, just for any mucky fingers so the new pads don't get contaminated. Little look around while things are off. Brake parts look all good. Wheel arches, liners, everything's intact. No leaks from the shock absorbers, springs are good. No, it's just nice to have a look while something else off. You don't always just go in and just do the one thing.
You never know, do you?
No. Anti-roll bar rubbers and everything else.
The bottom link we're going to look at some point in another few thousand miles.
This arm?
Yeah, I think you said it was
It's starting to just, when they get really bad, they leak oil.
Oh, okay.
They're actually oil filled.
Oh, really? Yeah, because we said we're going to keep an eye on it at the service.
Yeah, nothing there that kind of springs to attention that stands out as anything obvious. Right, we'll put the wheel on, or the wheel box where it should be. Check those by hand with a torque wrench in a moment so they're not over tightened or under. Just going to leave it at that height so it doesn't roll off the ramp until it takes the wheel box up.
Those discs look absolutely knackered. Down to the bone.
Maybe next time you jet wash it off, just give that area.
Yeah.
Good.
Something I was going to go and sort out at the next wash, which Steve just noticed as well, is that these drains, where the car's parked under a tree for a week or so under lockdown, it's collected a whole load of gunk that's blocking these drains up. So I'll give it a good old blast. Don't want this one filling up with water, same as the W123 and the Volvo as well. The other thing I've had to come back here for is this, which in theory I could do myself on a couple of jacks and some axle stands, but frankly I hate going underneath cars to do things, as you know. So this is the gearbox rear mount, which is quite a small bit of rubber with a couple of bits of metal sticking out of it, and that's what keeps the gearbox not shaking rapidly, pointing in the right direction for the tail shaft, making it easy to change gears. And it's not an expensive part either. Well, it is for the size of it, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not an expensive part, although I probably have bought cars for less. So this is the old versus the new. The old is on the left, and you can see quite a lot of daylight through there.
So this one, although the rubber hasn't, there are some manufacturing rubber around there. So some of the gaps that you see around, it's just webbing. So it's not that that's all disappeared.
Oh, the webbing is worn away.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of webbing. You see the main gap is just here. So that's the main difference we're looking for. But it's just because over time it's lowered. And just make sure we just have the weight off of it, line the bolts up in the back, then line the three up here, then just lower it onto it a little bit, and then we make sure that none of it's under stress and the mount is perfectly where it should be.
nice, these cars. Going for a quick road test, make sure the gearbox and the brakes are all okay. Now that's great. Driving away knowing that I've got working brakes for many thousands of miles to come. That's not a bill that's waiting for me at some point in the near future, because that is now directly in my past. And it's genuine Mercedes parts as well, proper AMG stuff, so it's decent quality that's going to last. It's going to stop the car safely, which is what it's all about, really, isn't it? Steve had a good old look underneath the wheel wells. There's nothing new to report. We've still got that same strange wear on the struts from the winter tyres. Those lower suspension components, they've not worn really anymore since last time we looked, but obviously the car hasn't really driven very far. But it's the gearbox. This would be interesting. It's the gearbox mount. It wasn't a massively expensive part, and it took literally 5 minutes to install for him with the 4-post ramp to get underneath the car. And the thing I'd found was, when I pull away sometimes, well, in fact most times, and sometimes as the gears engage, as you kind of lift your foot off the clutch, because the tail shaft of the gearbox wasn't completely straight in line with the prop shaft, because it was dipping down in the middle, it was just grumbling slightly as you lift off the clutch. Now it's all straight. I'm feeling that it's not got that little grumble, just as you've got your foot kind of halfway off the clutch. We're at some traffic lights right now. We'll find out in a second. Yeah, that is nicer actually. I've been starting to think that maybe the clutch was on the way out, but it's not. It was the misalignment of the gearbox, thanks to that dropping like a half centimetre to a centimetre with the weight of the box and the prop shaft hanging down. That does feel nicer. It is still a little bit notchy, but that is kind of the nature of the gearbox, and we are due to do a gearbox oil change, I think, on this at some point, because it's done 106,000 miles now, and a bit of molly slip might not be a bad idea, he was suggesting. Lovely 205 there. It's not so much the gear change, but the clutch feel, that just seems a little bit nicer now. And it's nice also to know I'm not putting additional wear on the other components around it. That's only one small bit of rubber, but if I'm putting a funny angle onto the prop shaft, it means the UJ's working harder, and the gearbox could potentially be under strain at the tail shaft output thingy. I know what I'm talking about. Right, well, thank you for joining me on a little rapid brief update on the W204, which looks like it's here for the long term, doesn't it? We keep on spending money on this thing. It's not really major jobs, just little bits of maintenance. It's keeping it on top of everything. Now, something I've said before in the past many times is that it's not so much you get bad cars as you get bad owners. I've had Alfa Romeos that have done tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles because I've been on top of the maintenance. I've never let it slide. A good car like this, which is one of the best that Mercedes have ever made, keep on top of the maintenance, don't let things slide, it will last a lifetime. I mean, potentially this car could be my last car I ever bought if I really wanted it to. But I'm sure that won't happen, because, you know, I will get bored in 6 months' time and flip it for something else. But yeah, it's just changing little things. Don't let the rubber bits wear out, keep the fluids changed. Make sure you're always on top of the service schedule. The car will just go on and on and on, and it won't give you problems. It will be reliable. So the brakes are now good. Well, they are still a little bit not quite bedded in yet. Give them another few miles yet to just to sort themselves out. The clutch is definitely feeling better now. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of car maintenance. If you have, please hit like, do hit the subscribe button, because that's how YouTube works. And I'll see you again next time, driving something somewhere, doing something to a car with spanners, probably, or not, who knows. Take care everybody, see you soon.